Okay, guys, we are live. This is event number 4 of 9 of our International Women's Day events this week. I'll pop the link in the chat if you haven't seen the others. Everything is free to attend and open to everybody. And that's thanks to our sponsors, so Lab 17 and Swag and Send. We couldn't have pulled all this together without you guys, so thank you both. Kat and Steph from the Lab 17 are going to talk to us now about crafting inclusive people experience, if I can get my words out. And they're going to chat to us for about 25 minutes, and then we've got Q&A. So if you've got any questions or comments as we go, please pop them in the chat and we will get to them afterwards. Only other thing left to say is that this will be recorded. So if you want to watch it again, share it, or for anyone that can't come, we will be sharing the recording afterwards. That's probably enough from me. Kat, Steph, I'll hand over to you guys.
Amazing. Thanks, LJ. Hello, everyone. We're really excited to be here. Before we jump into things, I wanted to introduce us and a little bit about what we do at the Lab 17. So the Lab 17 is a people and talent consultancy that helps tech organizations bring their visions to life. And we specialize in 2 main areas, being talent acquisition and people development. Kat and I are from the people development side of the business. We work with a range of tech startups and scale-ups from 20 to even 600 people to help them design and embed the foundations to drive high performance and engagement. So in a typical week, you might find our people dev team running a discovery process with a new partner, designing rituals and practices to drive high performance, running some learning and development, or implementing some scalable processes to get someone's people functions set up. The other side of the business focuses on talent acquisition, where all of our talent partners come from in-house backgrounds and really know what it takes to hire the right people and build an internal talent function. So the talent team, they embed themselves in an organization and they live, breathe, and build their employer brand, talent processes, hiring manager capability, and of course, hiring the people that they need. And our partnerships with talent really vary in size, from just a few roles to executive hiring or to scaling your whole organization up. As for me, I'm Steph. I'm a novice gardener, crafty creator, and I really light up when I get the chance to bring people together to explore ideas.
Awesome. Thanks, Steph. And me, I'm Kat. I'm a reader, a salad enthusiast, and a lover of all things that involve structure, planning, and organisation. So a bit of a nerd, as I like to think of myself. Our topic today is crafting inclusive people experiences using human-centered design. So as humans, we all hold individual biases. We bring our own assumptions about why things are the way they are and how we should solve particular problems and what other people might want or need in the things that we're designing. However, when we lean on our biases and our assumptions, when designing processes, programs, and experiences, particularly in the people space that affect ultimately a diverse range of people, we can unintentionally end up underserving or excluding people who are not like us, failing to deliver true value for our key stakeholders and our business, or maintain a really narrow focus on what we think people need, and then not open ourselves up to new opportunities or approaches. Ultimately, it means solving the wrong problem for the business and our people. And if we're solving the wrong problem, then we risk negatively impacting metrics relating to things like engagement, productivity, performance, and retention. We've been using the principles of human-centered design in our work at Lab 17 since the beginning, and we're super passionate about this way of approaching problem solving. From the outset, we're going to say that we're not UX experts, but simply people practitioners who really see the value in viewing the people and culture landscape through the lens of human-centered design. By doing so, we're constantly challenging ourselves to make sure that we're solving the right problem and not falling back on biases or assumptions that we might hold. So to get started, I'd like everyone to take a moment to reflect. So have you ever tried to solve a problem only to learn either partway through or maybe even at the end, once you've done all the hard work, that you were solving the wrong problem? Feel free to give us a ping in the chat if you can relate, or maybe just reflect to yourself silently. For me personally, I know I have. I find it very easy to jump into solution mode and press on with what I think is the right thing to do. So I'd like to take you through a case study here. It's a hilarious example of a product called Juicero that a former colleague shared with me. The founder, Doug Evans, he raised $120 million US to launch Juicero. So Doug had a really strong personal belief and bias towards the health benefits of consuming fresh cold-pressed juices. The juicer itself cost $700. It was connected to Wi-Fi and it came with a mobile app. It juiced fruit and veg from pre-packaged squeezy bags of chopped produce. Each bag came with a unique QR code, so you could actually trace where the fruit and veg had come from and expiry dates. And it cost between $5 to $7 US to buy one of these squeezy bags. Next slide, please, Steph. However, consumers quickly realized that you could actually just take the juice bags by themselves, squeeze them, and then the juice would juice itself. The $700 appliance was completely redundant. It won't shock you to know that the company went bust and the product did not take off. So if we start to think about why this happened, there are a few things that we can lean on. They were really not solving a real problem in the market. Firstly, cheaper juices existed and they did the exact same thing. And secondly, you could take the squeezy bag and get the juice out by yourself. So the juicer was redundant. The design was also based on the personal assumptions of the founder, that people valued the potential health benefits of juicing as much as he did and would therefore pay this exorbitant price to have this piece of high-tech juicing equipment on their kitchen counter. It was also narrowly targeted to a small affluent customer profile who might be willing to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on juice. It's pretty crazy in my opinion. So today we'll cover some basic principles of human-centered design that you can apply to your work straight away in the people and culture space to hopefully enable you to design experiences and programs that are more inclusive of the needs and motivations of the people in your organization. Like we said earlier, we're not UX designers, but we hope you can come away with this session feeling empowered and inspired that you don't need to be either, and that you've got some really practical takeaways that you can apply starting from tomorrow.
So, what is human-centered design? Great question. We define this as an iterative approach to solving problems and designing solutions that puts people first. And so when we say solutions, what we mean is processes, experiences, programs, and products. And so really the goal of human-centered design is to improve these experiences, products, programs, etc., taking into account people's interests, motivations, needs, and emotions. There are three key elements to this. First of all, it's really people-focused. It's International Women's Day or International Women's Week, as according to Strivon, which I love. Human-centered design is a really great tool you can use to design more inclusive people experiences that solve real needs and problems faced by various demographics in your business, so really creating that inclusivity. It's also data-driven, so this doesn't always necessarily need to mean surveys and interviews. It can be simple as validating the problem before jumping into solutions mode, which we'll talk quite a lot about today. And then finally, it's also a really iterative approach. So it's about creating small solutions, testing ideas early, bringing people from across the business along the journey. And going back to our Juicero example, of course, testing the idea of the juicer with people from different backgrounds, experiences, and demographics might have led them to the conclusion that the juicer was not really worth building, saving them time, money, and potentially their business as well. So classic example there. So what does it mean for you, people and talent practitioners, people of the public? It's about a mindset shift. So it's away from detailed end-to-end planning for a big bang launch and embracing that incremental solution approach to how we design and deliver people experiences.
And so far, we've covered what human-centered design is and some of the key mindset shifts that we need to think about to be more human-centered in our approach. But how does this work overall as a process? What steps can we practically take? There are an endless number of design processes and features available online. It sends me a little bit crazy when I Google design thinking or human-centered design, and I get thousands and thousands of frameworks, and I find it overwhelming and confusing about what it all means. But at the core, really, there are 4 key steps or key phases. It starts with discover. So learn as much as you can about the problem, the needs and perspectives of the people that the problem impacts, and then the context that the problem exists in. So you can think about the team, the company, the country, or the particular industry in which your business sits in. Then we move on to define. So we identify a set of problems that you need to solve, and then narrow in on the most important one that needs to be solved first, the one that drives value for both people and business. Then we jump into the design phase. Here we brainstorm different ways to solve the problem and bring your idea to life with a quick prototype or a mock-up. Then deliver. The aim here is to get your prototype or a small piece of the solution out to your key stakeholder groups as early as you can to get feedback and help you build on it over time. So while here we've described what looks like 4 distinct phases, in reality, you kind of jump through each of these back and forth as you learn new information, get more feedback, design something new to your prototype. Each time you're getting closer and closer to the real needs of the users that you're designing for and designing a solution that will ultimately meet their needs. Over the next few slides, we're going to take you through a real life example, play something out to bring these 4 stages to life, to a common problem we might have experienced in our roles. So let's start with this. You've scored 60% in the engagement survey question that says, I receive enough recognition when I do great work.
Have we lost Kat?
Ooh. Have you got me back?
Am I back? Are you back?
Am I back?
I dropped out.
I think you're good, Kat.
I'm good. All right. Let's play back. So let's start off with the scenario. We've got the question. You've just run your engagement survey and you've learned that 60% of people agree with the question, I receive enough recognition when I do good work. Next slide, please, Steph.
Jay, you want to give me a sign?
Steph, can you skip slides? Are you good? Or do you want to send it over and I can do it? I think Steph's having a few internet issues.
That's all good.
It's not a live stream or a webinar without a few internet issues though, is it?
Keeping things interesting.
I know. Have you got the slides? If so, if you want to put them over, I can always skip slides while we're waiting for Steph. Steph's back. We're all good.
I'm back.
Back on easy.
You're
Is
back.
it me cutting out or you guys cutting out?
I think it's you, Steph.
Damn. I've just tried to hotspot.
Good. There we
Good.
go. Slides back too. We're all good.
Excellent.
Cool. We ready to
Thank
move
you.
on?
Yeah, jump on to the next one. Cheers. Amazing. So it's pretty easy to take at face value the 60% score and jump into solution mode and start designing a recognition program to boost that score in the next round and feel like we're delivering real value and getting some wins on the board. However, if we take a bit more of a critical view and we can start thinking a little bit deeper, we might start asking questions like, well, what does recognition actually mean? What does other data say? What do managers think about the problem? And how do employees think and feel about the problem? What factors might influence how they like to be recognised? And is it actually all employees or is it particular subsets where this problem is concentrated? So I'll pass over to Steph, who is going to kick us off with how we might start approaching this problem.
That is if my internet continues to work. So flag with me if it's not working. But yes, so I'd love to tell you a little bit about the discovery phase. This is the first stage of human-centered design, and this is really all about using a beginner's mind. So you've got these two little dudes on the screen. What we want to be aiming for is that little dude in blue. This concept is one from a Zen Buddhism school of thought, and I learned it a few years back. It's known as Shoshin, or a beginner's mind. And it refers to that idea of letting go your preconceptions and having an attitude of openness when studying a subject. So if you think back to your first year in the workforce, at this point, you're a true beginner, your mind was empty and open to possibility, you're willing to learn and consider all the pieces of information, like a child discovering something for the first time. But then as you develop knowledge and expertise, your mind naturally becomes a little more closed and you start to think, I already know how to do this. And I read a great article from the Atomic Habits author, James Clear, and he states that as people develop in their career, they tend to wait until we hear something that matches with our current philosophy or previous experience, and then cherry pick information to justify our current behaviors and beliefs, which of course we all know as confirmation bias. But this sense of channeling a beginner's mind during the discovery phase of human-centered design really challenges you to let go of the assumptions and be open to possibilities. So in fact, it might mean that we start a discovery process and then you uncover something more urgent or valuable and you actually have to change tact and not even solve the original problem. And that's totally okay. And so our discovery phase, based around this concept of beginner's mind, is all about collecting data to validate the problem. You want to test your initial insight, your initial assumption, and there's heaps of techniques you can use. We recommend just choosing a couple that work for you. For example, you could start with existing data, looking at, what does your engagement survey say? Is this a challenge more relevant for a particular gender or other demographic? Maybe it pertains to a particular team or under a particular manager. You might start to organize a few interviews or focus groups. Maybe you're just checking in on leaders in your one-to-ones with them and asking them what they see as great work or what recognition means to them. You can start using the data that you're collecting via surveys, metrics, interviews, etc., to build what's called an empathy map. So mapping out what these employees think, feel, do, and say. And by doing this and following this framework, it's something I really love. You start to see the tension points. So some people might say that they feel recognized, but others might say that they don't. And so you've got kind of these interesting insights that you can draw upon. So in our scenario that Kat originally played out to us, we could uncover something like the problem with recognition and that low score actually relates mostly to the tech team. And we actually find out that our high performers don't have a problem with recognition. It's actually our lower performers who are feeling that lack of recognition. They're not feeling recognized, but their managers actually say that they're not meeting expectations consistently. So it turns out, among a few other things, you actually have a performance expectations problem and a performance problem. And so your low performers here, they need to understand what great looks like so that they can in turn be recognized.
This leads us to the next phase of define. So during the discovery phase, you've uncovered lots of new insights. You may have uncovered a set of new related problems, or perhaps just validated that that initial problem you uncovered is in fact the most important thing to focus on. Ultimately, the goal of the define phase is to reframe the problem to be solved with your new insights and then identify what that most important thing is to start working on first. So simple steps that we like to apply is gathering all the information that we have and defining problem statements and key insights, things that we've learnt. Framing these problems into how might we questions, and then identifying out of those, where do we need to focus our attention first to deliver the right value at the right time. To briefly touch on how might we statements, these are simply our problems and insights framed as questions. Framing them in this way are useful for two reasons. Firstly, they bring us back to a beginner's mindset to explore a range of questions and answers rather than jumping into solution mode. This means you might find yourself with a few different how might we statements relating to one problem. The second reason why they're useful is because they are action orientated. Asking how might we moves us out of asking why the problem is occurring and why it exists into how we might actually solve it. And it's that mindset shift again from focusing on the why into how and what can we do that drives power behind them. So in our scenario, we framed 2 how might we questions. How might we help people in tech understand what good looks like in their role? And how might we support people in tech to feel more recognised for their good work? So going back to our aim to identify the most important question to answer first, let us know what you think. Which of these would you approach answering first? You can give us a post in the chat if you're up for it. Easy. Well, the first one that we want to target is point 1 here. Help people in tech understand what good looks like, because without them having clear expectations in their role, how can we ensure that we're recognizing them for the right work and they can feel recognized? So now it's time to start thinking about design. Your goal here is to brainstorm solutions and design a prototype you can test for feedback with your stakeholders before investing too much time or resources into the complete design. 2 simple tools you can apply here to help you connect back to the needs of your people that you're designing for and their unique experiences are personas and journey maps. So over the next couple of slides, we're going to jump into these at a high level. Personas help you get into the heart and mind of the user you're building for, ensuring you're solving for their real challenges and needs. For example, unrelated to this scenario, say you're designing an onboarding experience for a hybrid workforce, a mix of remote and in-office people. Getting a strong understanding of the needs and challenges for someone who works completely remote versus someone who works in the office may lead you to make certain design decisions around connectedness that are polar opposites. Jumping back into our scenario, we could connect back to some of our findings from our initial discovery to design personas for roles in a tech team, such as a tenured mid-level designer, a low-performing software engineer, and a high-performing product manager. We would highlight features such as their basic demographics, what are they motivated by, what common challenges and pain points in the workplace do they experience, what do they ultimately need and want in the workplace environment, what inspires them. And so here we've created a really basic persona for Charlie, a low-performing software engineer looking for long-term employment with one company, loves clarity and structure, doesn't like too many meeting touch points that could be async updates. We would then create something similar for each of those personas to get an idea of, at a general level, the characteristics behind them. The second tool we want to cover is journey maps. Journey maps are a step-by-step breakdown of the process that a person takes to achieve a particular goal. So at a basic level, they set out each stage of an experience, the specific actions and needs of your persona at each stage. And they're really useful when you're designing or refreshing an experience like onboarding or like promotions processes in your organization or moments of recognition and expectation setting. So coming back to our scenario, first you could build a journey map to define each moment expectations are set for members of the tech team. Then you might take each of your personas and look at their needs. What does your persona want to achieve and what do they need at each of the different stages we've mapped out? We would look at strengths, where do we do really well? And then pain points, what's not currently hitting the mark? Where are areas of improvement? Then looking at our strengths and challenges, we can start to get an idea of where the problems to solve are and start to think about where we can make some quick wins and where we can focus on longer term projects. And based on that, start to prioritize our workflow. Touching on prototypes, so the design phase is also about designing prototypes. The goal of the prototype is to design something quick and rough to get feedback early from your stakeholders. Your prototype in this case could be the journey map that you've mapped out itself. Alternatively, it could be something that you've picked as a really important priority and you've designed a mock-up that you want to share back with your stakeholders. I'll pass back to Steph, who'll dig into this one a little bit more.
Thanks, Kat. Yeah, so in the deliver stage, it's time to deliver your prototype for feedback. And there's two ways that you can go about delivery, among a few others, but these are the ways that we like to approach it. So first of all, connecting back with those people you engage with in the discovery phase. So say you've done some interviews way back in the discovery phase, they've understood a little bit about the problem you're looking to uncover or solve, bringing them back in, taking them on the journey you've been on so far, keeping them in the loop and sharing those ideas that you have with them. So this could be in the form of a simple kind of Confluence page like we've got up on the screen there, as Kat said, a journey map or anything really. It's just a simple mock-up of what you're proposing. The second one is alternatively, if there's a really great idea that's easy to test, why not give it a go? So we really love kind of doing a little bit of A/B testing, giving it a try for a week, maybe focusing on a particular team or function and seeing what the feedback is, and then using that feedback to iterate and then launch out to the rest of the business. Admittedly, this phase can be a bit scary. Without the feedback at this stage, you could be heading down the track of Juicero. I remember back in the early stages of my career, I recall sharing a prototype with a fairly scary senior stakeholder, a daunting engineering manager, who gave me feedback at this stage that the thing I was proposing was not actually going to solve the problem for him. And I was very lucky I checked. It was a tough conversation, but it actually helped me to better understand the real problem that he was facing and also quickly pivot before investing too much time rolling something out. So as I said before, bringing your users and stakeholders in on this phase so they feel part of that solution is really rewarding. It can really mean that greater adoption and advocacy once you do eventually launch your first version as well. The other thing to keep in mind here is that this is the end of the first cycle of human-centered design. Once you've got the feedback, head back into your discovery, your define or design phase, depending on where you're at and what you need. So in our scenario, say you present your journey map to a bunch of different stakeholders, you get a bunch of feedback from different perspectives, not just your boss, importantly, back into the actual business, connect back to your customer. You find that one of your ideas was rejected. Too sad. Two of your ideas were great, but they're not a priority right now. And then two of your ideas were things that people were really excited about. So you start to implement your first slice of value. For example, you could be implementing to solve this particular problem, kicking off Monday Stand-Up with a big three, the top 3 individual priorities for the week to align on expectations across your team and help people know what good looks like. Or potentially a longer term play, so setting quarterly goals with your manager, which of course you would use human-centered design approach to design. And then of course, repeating the human-centered design process in this scenario. So what this could look like is once we've rolled out this slice of value, we could focus on a different persona or a different how might we statement. Or we could just sit back and actually wait and get some feedback on the rollout of these weekly priorities and goals and just validate if there's still a problem to solve. For example, if you waited and you got a little bit of feedback, you might find that with priorities being set on a Monday, they're actually forgotten about by Friday. So you might implement another new solution like collecting an impact rating against them at the end of the week. So hopefully by now you're feeling a little bit like a human-centered designer. We've got a few learnings that we've had along the journey that we're keen to share with you. So as we've learned more about human-centered design and design thinking and practiced this way of working for the past few years, we've learned a lot and we're still learning, admittedly. One of the things that's trickiest for me is jumping into solution mode. I am naturally quite fast at moving from idea to action. I really love the design and deliver phases of human-centered design. But this also means that I can hear a problem, fall in love with an idea and get stuck when I'm implementing it because I haven't really validated the problem to solve. I'm working on it, as Kat knows, but when I hear an idea or an initial insight, one of my favorite catchphrases to use to help myself and others go back to the problem space is, what's the problem you're trying to solve? It's such a powerful question. That simple phrase has really helped me to just take a step back, especially when I'm feeling really itchy to get stuck in and deliver.
And for me, I'm almost the complete opposite. So I love getting stuck in the discovery and definition phase here. And I can also get stuck into perfectionism. So I always feel like there's more information to learn, new problems to uncover, and insights. And then I can also really focus on trying to design something perfectly before getting it out to our stakeholders for feedback. So I have to make a really conscious effort to stop myself before I get in too deep down the rabbit hole, share something back early, and then actively seek out either tricky stakeholders for their feedback or even team members in the moment while I'm brainstorming and designing, and just pulling them into the same room or the same Zoom meeting, whatever format we're in, and just picking their brains while I'm partway through the design so I don't get too far down one avenue that's not really the right solution to be pursuing. So how can you get started? Like a great human-centered designer, we want you all to start small. We want you to take a moment to think of one project or initiative that you're working on, or maybe it's a challenge or a problem that you're experiencing in your team or organization. And so a couple of things, or a few things that you can do to get started is, one, learn more about the problem. Identify 2 or 3 stakeholders who can give you a different perspective about the problem to help you understand it a little bit differently or a little bit better. Deliver incremental value as a second point. So take a big, hairy problem and then break it down into small pieces. Figure out which one is the most important thing to work on first and start making impact in that area. And then the third piece is get feedback. So during both the design or once you've delivered that small piece of value, get feedback from 3 different people and figure out how you can make it better and what you should prioritize on working on next. So with all of that, we hope you feel equipped with some key principles that you can apply in your work. Take 30 seconds to reflect and maybe write in the chat one thing that you've taken away from this session that you can apply going forward.
Eagerly waiting your responses. Everybody rushes to find the tab that they were on.
Yeah. Where's the little microphone symbol in my tab?
LJ's got a good one, asking what's the problem you're trying to solve before jumping into solutions. It's honestly gold.
Best question. Yeah.
Very good. Anyone else?
Steph asks me that one basically every single week in our one-on-one, and it challenged me every single time.
Eddie's the same.
Yeah.
Wait for one more response. How might we statements? Yeah. Really opens up the possibilities. Yes, and the juicer. Don't invest too heavily up front. Test and learn. And I think the juicer thing, like, it just reminds me of, projects in the past that I've seen where people squirrel away for weeks trying to design something and then they launch it and you're like, damn, the business isn't taking this on. But you wonder why. And I think it's because you've not stopped in the middle of the design process and actually checked in to go, hold on a minute, is this the right thing? Is this going to solve the problem that we've got?
Yeah, and it's that mindset of just because you think it's the right thing doesn't actually mean it's the right thing in every scenario. So always testing back.
Nice. Awesome. Some really good responses here in the chat. Before we jump into questions, I just wanted to very quickly change topic, shameless self-promotion here, and share some exciting news. We're actually running a leadership development program in the coming months. We're focusing on building the skills you need as a leader in tech to foster high performance and engagement. It's a 12 or 10-week virtual program targeted at early stage leaders. So if you've been in a people leadership position for a few years, or maybe you're brand new to it, it's perfect for those kinds of people. It's going to involve a lot of group discussion, peer coaching about problems faced in the moment, as well as a lot of really practical takeaways that you can apply right away. So if this would be valuable to you, LJ's just posted the link in the chat. There's also a QR code up on the screen if you want to log into that little code. And you can sign up now just to be on a waiting list to hear about more info as it comes through over the coming month or so. So after that shameless self-promotion, I want to jump into questions. what questions do you all have? And I might stop sharing my screen as well. Jump in the comments.
I guess while we're waiting for people to add comments, I have some questions. I wrote down quite a lot of questions as we go, as you guys. I think the big one, when we were thinking about like discovery and feedback, do you guys start with a group of people that you do discovery with that then give feedback? Or how do you go about getting those people to give you the feedback that you need in like a timely manner?
Yeah. I have found the most engaging and fun that I've had with human-centered design is when I've engaged the same group of people throughout the process, so long as that group is like a really good cross-section of the type of people you are designing for. It really is awesome to see it when people across the business, like, you know, you might have someone in the customer team or someone in marketing or someone in engineering, feel like they're a part of creating a people experience solution. They get so excited about it, bringing them on that journey and like taking them a little bit of time out of their day to just give a little bit of feedback on something. It's a really rewarding experience. And getting the feedback in a timely way. I do a bit of like what I call guerrilla marketing, but it's not really guerrilla marketing, but it's like guerrilla user testing, where I just like will go into an office when I am in the office and I'll just drop past people's desks and be like, hey, I've got this idea. What do you think? Which is a great way to get really quick feedback. It's probably a little bit disruptive, but that's one of the ways I've done it. Otherwise, really good to do surveys. Lean on your business partners if you've got business partners in the business as well, who can really kind of connect in with those different functions. But yeah, there's lots of different weird things.
I guess just like follow up on that as well. When you're getting feedback, because just thinking about smaller businesses, like what percentage of the business or how many people do you need feedback from to make it sure it's like you've got a reasonable amount of data and not just, you know, like the 3 people that sit near you?
Yeah, I think it depends on how many people the problem affects as well. There's lots of different, like if you're designing it only for one team, you might want to go a little bit smaller, but if it's all of the org, you want to get a good cross section. I don't have a magic formula, unfortunately, but I would say use your best judgment, get enough perspectives. But I think, I mean, in my experience, I've found that after a little while, you start seeing the same patterns in the data, and that's when you know you can stop.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Has anyone else got any other questions rather than just me questioning the guy? If not, I've got more. I guess the other one I was going to ask, what's the usual barriers do you think that stops people from doing this?
Kat, do you want to
just when you've outlaid it, like it all makes so much sense, right? Particularly just like asking yourself what problem you're going to solve. But we're not doing it. If not, you guys wouldn't be talking about it.
Yeah. I think thinking about it as like this big, massive process or project that you need to undertake. And it's like if you just take literally some of the principles of human-centered design and take like the first thing that you can start doing. And then, you know, if it's finding that breaking down something really big into smaller pieces and identifying what's going to drive the most business value and employee value, and then start working on that and then just getting feedback early, I think you're well on your way. The biggest learning for me is when we talked about the mindset shift earlier on in the slides, and going from like, I need to design this big annual HR program and then deliver it out to the organization and they're all going to clap their hands and think it's amazing. Never ever lands that way. But where I found I had the most value and have the biggest impact with organizations, particularly working in tech, where like design thinking, product thinking is second nature to them. You start speaking their language and they buy into it a little bit more. And so starting small, bringing them into the process, and they love it. It's great.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you. Okay, if we've not got any questions, have you guys got anything else you want to cover?
Not particularly. I think if anyone's keen to reach out and learn a little bit more about what we do at the Lab 17, or even just chat through a human-centered design problem or a project that they're working on that they want some advice on how to approach, I'm always happy to chat. I'm based in Sydney. I'm up on the Central Coast and I'm down in the city every now and then, and I love a coffee. Kat is down in Melbourne, so she's a great person to lean on down there in the community, but we're also available virtually, of course. So yeah, really keen to connect. Add me on LinkedIn or shoot me a message. We can go from there.
We have just had one question, so I'm just going to pop that on the
Yeah.
screen. So how do you find operational leaders respond to this collaborative approach? I'd imagine it would need additional time to have feedback loops included with the project plan. Great question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I start, Steph? I've got a
Yeah,
couple
you
of
go.
ideas. Yeah. I think weighing it up as kind of like what's the alternative is like we focus on designing something in a silo that doesn't potentially land. And so when you describe that, it's thinking about then the value that you can connect out. So we're designing essentially solutions for customers. Our customers are people in our organization. And to do that in an effective way, we need to bring them into that process early on. And so ultimately there's going to be waste in the process if we don't do that. And then we design something, give it to them, and they're like, that's not actually what we need. And so I think framing it up as in we're designing for our customers and we need to understand what they need and what value they will find in what we're doing is a good way to get that buy-in from leadership.
And I think starting small as well, I feel like we've said it a million times, but I there's a lot of value in even just putting in a tiny little, like a day of delay to actually just collect a few pieces of feedback. Even just collecting 3 different opinions on what you're building before you build it is better than nothing. And so if there is a real rush and you have to move really quickly, I think you can still build in a few elements or principles of that design thinking mindset and human-centered design approach into the actual work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both for today. I really appreciate it. It's been awesome. For everyone that's on the call, I will add the recording as soon as it's ready, so everyone's got that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks, LJ.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.